I'll try to do this by being sufficiently depressing. This is quite a good time in the bad way to be talking about refugees, because yesterday marked the anniversary of that horrible death of Aylan Kurdi, a Kurdish Syrian who was washed away on the shores of Bodrum in Turkey. And in the referendum campaign, as you notoriously will have noted, the only reference really to refugees was that despicable poster that we saw from Nigel Farage standing against the breaking point poster of refugees marching from, in that case, Croatia to Slovenia. But it doesn't mean refugees are not going to be relevant in the post-Brexit era. And what I want to do in the next couple of minutes is just talk you a little bit through what the current place that the UK has within the common European asylum system, one might not call an a la carte approach to European refugees. I then want to talk to you a little bit about the Human Rights Act, about that other very important venue for refugee protection in this country, and one that is very much under threat currently in this parliament and under this government. And then finally talk a little bit about Calais and how we change the discourse around Calais, rather than just talk about that agreement that we have with the French, talk about what our responsibility can be in relation to Calais. So let's first talk about the common European asylum system, because the fact is that the UK is part of the European Union, but it is actually only part of the European asylum system for the part that works well for it. That is, for the part that allows it to send back refugees that have crossed one more than European border and have reached the United Kingdom, the so-called Dublin returns. The UK has never been part of the other European acquis, not part of the Receptions Directive, not part of the Returns Directive, and indeed it hasn't contributed or hasn't decided to play a part in the relocation scheme within the European Union. Calypso talked earlier about burden sharing within the European Union. That scheme that was intended to alleviate some of the burden of Greece, of Italy, is one that the UK hasn't opted into. Instead, we've committed, after that horrible picture last year, to take in 20,000 refugees over the course of this parliament. Now, I don't know how many you think the UK has taken thus far, but it is far less than 1/5 of that. We've not even reached 2,500. And so the first point that really needs to come across is, even if we're going to be leaving the European Union, which obviously people here very much hope we won't, then the one thing we need to make sure that the UK steps up its commitment to take in many more refugees from the countries neighbouring Syria. The number is now close to 5 million. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the other mechanisms for protection of people from being returned to harm's way. Because the other institution that really annoys many of the Brexiteers, and indeed in the lead up to the referendum, our current Prime Minister has actually said that she wants to stay in the EU, but she wants to leave the European Convention of Human Rights. And within the European Convention of Human Rights, what annoys Theresa May and others most of all is the fact that they cannot send people back to places where there will be harm, the so-called Article 3 provision of the European Convention. Now, it's been hidden in the news in the last couple of weeks, in the news cycle, that actually repealing the Human Rights Act is back on the agenda. It's been away for a couple of months, but it has a return now. So the other thing that I want to urge you to do in your discussions with people, in writing to your MPs, is to resist this through and through, the repeal of the Human Rights Act, because we know that whatever replaces it will not be as protective. Because if you were to be as protective, they wouldn't want to repeal it. And then the third thing I want to talk about is about Calais. Because What we've been hearing about Calais primarily is how horrendous it will be if the French revoke the agreement that allows us to have border control essentially on French territory, the Le Touquet agreement. And we heard from Sarkozy and from Alain Juppé that they are probably going to try, at least in electioneering France, to get it revoked. But what we don't hear in the discourse is why is it that many of the people there actually want to make it to the United Kingdom? It's not a random choice. There are at the moment about 2,000 unaccompanied children in Calais who want to come to the UK because the families, the extended families they have, live here because the language of the countries from which they've fled, if it's in addition to local language, would be English. They don't speak French. They wouldn't be able to manage in French, in French and in France more generally. And that's the reason why people camp out in Calais. That's the reason why they can't claim asylum in France, because if they were to claim asylum in France, they'd need to stay in France, and they have no one in France. And so let's change the discourse over Calais. Let's, rather than talk about how the danger is that we no longer will be able to prevent people from coming here, try to recognize that there are people in Calais whose best place for asylum is actually the United Kingdom. Thank you.